Yeah, I'm making some pesto. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. It's Bowen. In today's video, I am going to be showing you how to do two different recipes. So one recipe is going to help you build the next recipe, so you're kind of getting a two-in-one deal. So the first thing that we're doing is we are making crunchy walnuts. Crunchy walnuts are walnuts that have been soaked and then slowly dehydrated at a low temperature to help reduce phytic acid content, but also still keep as many enzymes intact as possible. This is an old method of preparing them, and it makes them more digestible and honestly taste really good. So the first step to making crunchy walnuts is to soak them in warm salt water for 8 to 12 hours. So I'm soaking these at night before I go to bed. I just slightly heated up the water on the stove and poured it over the walnuts with some salt. Once you cover them with water, just give them a gentle stir to make sure the salt is incorporated, but the warm water will help dissolve it pretty quickly. Then just cover it up and leave it to sit for 8 to 12 hours. The next morning, take the walnuts and drain the soaked water out and give them a really good rinse. It feels like I have been using my dehydrator almost daily in the summer, so I'm pulling some herbs out before I get ready to put the walnuts into the dehydrator. So for this next step, all you're going to do is spread the walnuts out in an even layer on your dehydrator trays. I like to use the fine mesh dehydrator trays because there are some smaller nuts that will tend to fall through, and it's just easier to have them laying on these smaller trays. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can do this in the oven. It will just be at a higher temperature, so you're going to have to watch them a little bit closer, and it will probably kill off more of the enzymes that are naturally occurring in nuts. However, I personally would still choose to soak them just because I find for me that I digest nuts that are soaked much better than just straight up raw nuts. But that's a personal decision you'll have to make yourself. After you've got all your trays ready, load them up into your dehydrator and set the temperature at 150 and let them dehydrate for 24 hours. If you are using the oven, you'll just have to see how low your oven goes to. I think most ovens go as low as 200 to 250. And I would make sure that you start them at the beginning of the day so that you can check them every few hours. When the nuts are done, they should be crispy and completely dry. They are so good. I suggest trying some right away. You will love the way that these taste. Most of the salt gets rinsed off, so you can always salt them again before you put them into the dehydrator. Really, whatever you want to do. I usually just leave them plain because I use them in recipes and do other things with them, so I can always add salt later on. Alright, part 2 of the video is we are going to be using our crunchy walnuts to make a batch of basil pesto. So I have had what I call a bumper crop of basil. I only have 2 plants, but I've had so much basil. I feel like it's such a blessing. I mean, I know it's just an herb, but the smell of it, the taste of it is so good. I've been dehydrating so much of it to use in the winter, and then I decided I'm going to try to make a few rounds of basil pesto before the season is over. This is my first year growing herbs. I had tried herbs in pots in the past with no success, and once I planted them in these raised beds where they have access to the ground, they just really started to flourish, and I feel like growing herbs is right now my favorite thing to do. They just make me so happy. So anyway, I am trimming off some basil, getting some of the kind of older leaves, and then also some nice fresh ones with lots of flavor, and we're going to take those in and get them ready to make basil pesto with. If it's going to be a few hours before you get to process your basil, or if you're just picking it and you want to keep some fresh in your house, put it in some water like you would flowers, and it will last for quite some time this way. Before I get started with using the basil, I always give it a good wash and spin in my lettuce spinner. I'm going to start by getting some garlic, just kind of roughly chopped before I put it into the blender. So I'm using 3 large cloves of garlic. You could always do more or less, but I didn't want it to be too overwhelmingly strong, so I did 3 large cloves. I am adding in a 1/3 cup of walnuts as well as the garlic. I'm going to just get this pulverized together to start with. I'm using the dry blade on my Vitamix blender. When you process the walnuts, you just want to process them for a few seconds and get them looking like this, kind of crumbly. Next, we're going to add in 2 cups of fresh basil. Add in 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. I add fresh ground pepper to taste. And then we will slowly get to blending. So if you have a wand to kind of press things down in there, you'll definitely want to have that out and ready to go. So before I start adding in the olive oil, I start to get things kind of combined little by little. Give the sides a scrape to kind of help things along. Everything is just a dry mixture at this point, and it's not well combined. Now we're going to start to add in the first half of the olive oil. So you're going to add 2/3 cup of olive oil, but I would do 1/3 cup first, slowly incorporate it with the Vitamix running, and then add in your shredded cheese, mix that in well, and then do your second olive oil addition. So you'll be adding in 1/2 cup of finely grated Parmesan cheese. The final step is to add the second half of the olive oil, so that would be another 1/3 cup, again 2/3 cup total. This is what it looks like when everything is incorporated, so it's going to look pretty liquidy, and it is so good. It's going to smell amazing, and you're going to be so excited to try it. And that is it. That is how you make basil pesto from fresh basil. I am going to freeze some of it up into some small cubes so that I have some for later, because I don't think we're going to get to using all of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new, hopefully you will stick around and subscribe for more recipes, cooking inspiration, and grocery hauls. For My Kitchen to Yours, I wish you the best of health for years to come. Can't wait to see you in the next video.